Welcome to episode 8 of Parker Brothers Build the Boardwalk. Last week, Georgiana Lamb escaped from an elaborate kidnapping plot with the help of her former love, Otis Molyneux. She's worried about her aunt, since harm against her was used as a threat in order to drive Miss Lamb into the hands of the kidnappers. The only person who might have information on the aunt's whereabouts is Sidney Parker, who's been away for months in Antigua. Until now. Without any forewarning, he appears in the breakfast room where the Parkers are visiting with Georgiana the morning of her return.
Good morning. Rather late for breakfast, is it not? Did you stay out dancing all night?
Sidney!
Sidney! I'm so glad you're back!
Tom and Mary greet him with a hug.
Come, sit down. Tell us about your trip.
And you will have to meet your new niece.
Congratulations, Mary. Tom, what is her name?
Lily, our sweet lily of the valley.
We had quite a lot of them growing at Parker Downs.
Yes, they were Mother's favourite flower.
Miss Hayward, good to see you.
Mr. Parker, I'm glad you had a safe journey.
Georgiana, are you staying here?
Miss Lamb has been through the ringer. Would you believe she was abducted again? And returned just now, safe and sound as you see her.
Abducted? Well, how did this happen?
Sidney gives Charlotte a questioning look, and Georgiana notices.
Charlotte had nothing to do with it.
It seems there may be several people involved in this plot, even Sir Edward Denham.
Sir Edward? And Georgiana?
It's quite a story, right out of a novel, and we have Mr. Molyneux to thank for her rescue.
Indeed. Are you sure he was not in on it all along?
I'm sure.
He has just now brought her back.
Oh, well then.
Perhaps Georgiana would like to rest. I doubt you've had much over the past week, my dear.
Thank you, Mrs. Parker. But I don't think I can sleep while my aunt is in danger.
What does your aunt have to do with it?
I was induced into a stranger's carriage because they threatened to harm my Aunt Sadie. They sent me her cameo brooch as proof that she was in their power.
The one we gave her back in Antigua?
Yes.
Well, this is most extraordinary. I think I can put your fears to rest, Georgiana. I wonder if I might have a word with you in the hall.
We will just be in the drawing room. We'll want to hear all about your trip.
Charlotte, you may stay.
Georgiana, I made a decision on your behalf, not knowing if you would approve. It will affect your domestic arrangements for some years to come, so I did not make it lightly.
You did not sign a marriage contract for me.
No, but it is almost as serious. I did think it right, however. I found your aunt living in absolute poverty in Antigua. She had to go back to the cane fields after the estate was sold. She has a son now, and I do not know how long either of them would last in their present living conditions. And so I asked her if she and her little boy would like to come and live here, in England, at least for now. Once you leave Mrs. Griffith's house, I'm sure she will want to live with you. In the meantime, I will look out for a position for her. She has agreed.
She's safe then. You've seen her?
Yes, she is safe, but she's not very well, and she's not heard from her husband in some time.
When will they be here? Are they on the next ship?
I take it you approve, then. I did not know exactly where I would house them.
does it matter? As long as she's safe, it can be worked out.
Then come with me, Georgiana.
Sidney takes Georgiana and Charlotte to the entryway, where an African woman and her son are seated. Georgiana is stunned. She looks at Sidney.
You remember your Aunt Sadie?
Georgiana runs to her and embraces her, then holds out her hand to her little cousin. Charlotte stands a little ways apart with tears in her eyes until Georgiana reaches out her hand to her as well.
Charlotte, come here. I want you to meet my Aunt Sadie.
How do you do?
And who is this?
This is Joshua. Can you say how do you do to your cousin?
Georgiana gives the little boy a hug. Then he bashfully returns to his mother. Sidney smiles with satisfaction. He turns to join the others in the dining room. Georgiana, tears streaming down her face, holds out her hand to her guardian.
Sidney, thank you.
Sidney takes her hand for a moment. Then, with a final look at the reunited family, he leaves the room, followed by Charlotte. Georgiana sits down with her aunt to get reacquainted.
That was a very good thing you did.
I hope so. It may prove more difficult for Mrs. Williams to settle here than it was for Georgiana. The conditions are so poor there, even for the freedmen.
It will be good for Georgiana to have family here. It will give her someone to care for.
Mm.
And her inheritance, is it still intact?
It was a hard battle, not because the will was unclear, but because Mr. Lamb's brother was so intent on finding any loophole he could. It was torture. But in the end, we won.
Well done, Mr. Parker.
Now for the next battle.
Courage, Mr. Parker. It's not meant to be a battle.
And how have you been, Miss Hayward?
Well,
I'm glad to hear it. This business with Miss Lamb, it did not involve any attempt on your part to reunite star-crossed lovers?
no, it did not.
Good.
Although I did go to hear Mr. Molyneux speak before Christmas with my sister. He caught up with me afterwards and asked me to deliver a message to Georgiana.
And you delivered it?
He only wanted to say that he had left the gaming tables and was making an honest living in bookselling. I think he must be very poor.
Which will give him all the more reason to need her money.
I kept this from her until a fortnight ago. She had recently observed him at his bookstore. She said he looked wretched and was worried about him. I think he may truly care for Georgiana.
Are you basing this solely on what he says?
I have no reason to trust his word any less than I trust yours.
Well put, Miss Hayward.
Please, I did not mean that as an insult, but as a compliment to you both.
Odd sort of compliment.
You're a man of few words, Mr. Parker, but the ones you say are true, and you honour your commitments. I admire that. I believe Mr. Molyneux also means what he says. By his appearance, it would seem he is living a very frugal life. I can see that he is very passionate in his work for the Sons of Africa, to the point of it consuming all his energy. I wish you could hear him speak.
I have heard him. He is very eloquent. And you are of the opinion that he was completely unaware of this kidnapping plot?
Yes, I do. He asked Tom to hire a private investigator.
Well, then, I suppose he would not do that if he were guilty.
Excuse me, Sidney. I hope I'm not interrupting. Is Miss Lamb's aunt actually in the house here?
Yes.
Then perhaps she'd like some breakfast.
Yes, thank you, Mary. They are just through there.
Oh, good.
And are you hungry, Mr. Parker?
Very.
Then come, have some breakfast. I'm glad you're back.
I was not sure you would be. Will you have something as well? A cup of tea?
Thank you, Mr. Parker. I shall.
After some breakfast, Sidney finds Tom in his library.
Sidney, I can't tell you how good it is to have you back.
And I'm glad to find you at home and not in Fleet Prison.
Quite. I did have to sell Bedford.
Did you? I guess I will be finding quarters elsewhere then.
Are you not getting married soon?
I do not yet know when that will happen.
Well, you will be happy to hear that the buyer is Arthur, so I am sure he will let you keep your quarters. But he is planning to tear out the windows once we leave for Sanditon. He prefers the Venetian style.
I see. Well, selling to Arthur makes a lot of sense, though I could do without the Venetian windows. But it is time for Arthur to make his own decisions. Mary is looking well, and the child is healthy.
Oh yes, Lily was strong from the first, but we almost lost Mary.
Indeed.
Charlotte has been invaluable in helping Mary and the children, and in the search for Miss Lamb as well.
Has she? I can't say I'm surprised.
He has a very level head, and not an ounce of vanity. I call myself quite fortunate to have happened upon the Haywoods last summer. Allison, too, has been of immense help, even while she was in a state of grief.
And where is Miss Allison today?
Gone back to Sanditon. Lady Denham took a fancy to her, if you can imagine that.
Poor Miss Allison.
Yes. Well, Miss Allison may do Lady Denham a great deal of good. She won't simper like Miss Brereton, and she might even be bold enough to speak some truth to her.
Imagine that. The mouse taming the lion.
Just so, Sidney. Stranger things have happened, as sure as eggs are eggs.
A couple of days later, Sidney calls at Eliza's London townhouse. She greets him with a kiss on the cheek.
Sidney, I heard you were back. How was the voyage?
Rather wet. How are you, Eliza?
As well as can be expected after not seeing you for months. Why did you not come at once?
I had to follow up on the investigation into Miss Lamb's abduction.
From last summer?
No, she was abducted again last week. But it must be kept quiet. The abductors are still at large.
How horrid for you. And her inheritance, does she still have it?
Yes.
Thank heavens. Now, Sidney, allow me to put your mind on pleasanter subjects. I thought we might discuss our wedding. I've made inquiries, and we may have St. George's in 4 weeks at 10 o'clock. I have always loved May for a wedding.
Eliza, before you go any further, there is something I must tell you.
Oh dear, what is it?
I'm not proud of it. And I hate to even say it aloud, but I think it best to be honest about why I proposed to you. This time. What I've done is not particularly uncommon. Some cases do have better outcomes than others, but...
Heavens, Sidney, just say it. I am sure you could do nothing that would make me think really ill of you.
You may have just cause to think ill of me when I tell you. But when I proposed last summer, it was because I was in a rather desperate situation. Or my brother, to be more accurate. He was threatened with debtor's prison. I asked you to marry me because I knew you would have the financial means to help my family.
Is that all? I knew your brother was in debt. It is very honorable that you would want to help him. I do not mind being the means to assisting him to some extent, if it means that we may resume the happiness that we knew 10 years ago.
That was such a long time ago. I am not the same man. And this... It's not the same river.
Perhaps this river will be better. Besides, I would say that you are the same man. You've always had such integrity, and this proves you have not changed. I do not know of any other man who would admit so candidly, even if your love for me has cooled a little since I first knew you, I see a glistening ember. You are honest because you care. You don't want to start this marriage based on anything less than the truth. Is that right?
Yes.
The pretense of love is much more comfortable than no love at all. But I do prefer a little true love over pretense. I thank you for your frankness. I think you will find once we marry, the happiness which we dreamed of years ago will come to fruition.
But I very much doubt that. And I mention my motive because I'm sorry for it, and I want you to feel at liberty to release me, if you wish.
But I do not wish it. These kinds of marriages are made all the time, Sidney. We have the benefit of a mutual admiration to make it infinitely sweeter.
But Eliza, the debt is £80,000. Tom has paid some of it, but it may take almost that much to keep him out of prison.
That is quite a sum. And when do the creditors need the full amount?
Lady Denham gave us a week last summer to find the money, but has not yet made good her threat.
Oh, Lady Denham, the dowager, that's whom you're afraid of?
She has the power to put Tom in prison if she likes.
But she won't. Can you imagine the snub she'd receive for putting Sanditon's favorite son in prison?
I don't think he is looked on with so much favour these days.
No. You are Sanditon's favorite son now, my darling. So, 4 weeks. On the 15th, I shall make appointment this week.
I wish you would not.
People are talking, Sidney. 9 months engaged and no wedding date. When we have nothing left to wait for, they will say, you are not a man of your word.
Are you absolutely sure about this?
Yes.
As it pleases you, then.
Meanwhile, back in Sanditon, Alison Hayward knocks on the door of a shopkeeper's cottage in the old village. She notes that a small porch looks new compared with the rest of the cottage, and built into the porch is a bench for sitting outside on pleasant days. A severe bout of coughing is heard inside, and then a feeble, "Come in." Alison, holding a basket in one arm, pushes open the door and enters a poorly lit room. As her eyes adjust in the dimness, she can make out a large old-fashioned spinning wheel, overlaid in cobwebs just beyond the fireplace. He then is able to make out the occupant of the house, Widow Stringer, seated by a dying fire, with young Stringer's dog curled up next to her.
Hello, Mrs. Stringer?
Yes?
Good day to you. It's Alison Hayward, Lady Denham's companion.
What can I do for you?
I did not see you at church, so I thought I would come see how you did.
Oh, come on in and shut the door, miss, before the wind blows the fire out. Pull up a chair. Oh, pardon me if I don't get up. Can't shake this cough, and it's done me in today, it has.
Oh, I'm sorry to hear that. Would you like me to stir up your fire?
Oh, aye, that's a good idea.
Alison adds a small log to the fire and it begins to burn more cheerfully. She pets the dog as they canvass the usual subjects of weather and health until Alison notices a book lying on the table.
Are you reading Pilgrim's Progress?
Well, Jimmy is reading it out to me at night.
Is he? Does he stay here then?
Oh, when he is back home, he does. Yes, he's a good lad. Such a comfort in my... when my Billy died in the war, he would have been just like his cousin.
Are you enjoying the book?
Oh, yes. I never heard anything so interesting. I never had much time for reading when I was young, but Jimmy always did take it on. He wants to make something of himself, just like his father.
I was not privileged to know his father, but my sister Charlotte met him last summer.
Oh, Isaac were quite a worker. He could have gone on with my husband, in the vegetable business way back in the beginning when the Parkers set us up. But that weren't smart enough for him. Isaac wanted to follow his father in stonemasonry. Even when there was little call for it, in Sanditon at that time. It's too bad, if you ask me. He might still be here if we'd been content with a greengrocery.
That fire caused so much tragedy.
Oh, aye, it did. Isaac couldn't leave anything all finished, There was no call for him to stay painting through the evening after working all day. But that's the way he lived, and that's the way he died. Bless his soul.
Are you all right?
A drink of water.
Alison pours her a mug of water, then brings a container of soup out of her basket.
Lady Denham's cook made some stew today. I thought it might taste good on a brisk spring day.
Oh, thank you, miss. You're a good girl. We're 20 of Lady Denham's nieces.
Oh, it's nothing. I'll bid you good day, Mrs. Stringer.
And a good day to you too, Miss Allison, was it?
Yes, Mum.
I don't get many visitors. It's been a pleasure. And now I will have something to talk over with Jimmy.
Oh, you need not mention it to Mr. Stringer.
Oh, of course I will. I never had any news, and now a pretty little girl goes bringing me soup from Lady Denham. That has not happened in all the years I've known her.
It was really nothing. Goodbye then, Mrs. Stringer.
Late that evening, in the drawing room of Sanditon House, Lady Babington is alone. She sits down at the piano and starts playing a slow, melancholy air. Lord Babington is in another room with a book. When he hears the music, he comes to the door and watches her quietly for a while before walking up to her.
That was achingly beautiful. What was it?
Just something I play when I'm in a certain mood.
And what mood is that?
Poignant, remembering the past, and longing, I suppose.
Longing for what?
Love, perhaps.
And have you found it?
What do you think?
Esther smiles and kisses him. Lord Babington embraces her, and picking her up from the piano stool, he carries her out of the room. The next morning, Lady Denham and the Babingtons are eating breakfast at Sanditon House. Esther covers a yawn.
How can you be so tired, Esther? I cannot imagine what's keeping you up all hours.
It is just the tedium of country life, Aunt. I had almost forgotten what it was like.
Well, today should prove a little more interesting. 2 of my new milk chasses should arrive, one of which shall carry the Prince Regent himself to his picnic.
I'm not sure Sanditon can handle this much excitement.
Or the number of people. We will be full for the first time since Prospect House was built. Only the cottages are left, and I do not know where the Prince will put all his people.
I suppose he could stay in Sir Edward's cottage, Ornay.
There are hardly enough bedrooms. Where would he put his court?
I do not know. Surely Lady Worcester has everything arranged.
I was expecting her invitation by now. I wonder if she thought we were still in London.
I am glad I was not asked to entertain the Prince Regent.
Perhaps, Aunt, he was waiting to be invited by you. You are the highest-ranking lady in town.
Me? Host the Prince Regent? Perhaps I should have. But it is just as well. I do not want to go to jail for speaking the truth to his face. I never know when it might fly out of my mouth. Where would the town be then? Mr. Parker in debtor's prison and me in the Tower. Sanditon could slide into the sea and no one would be here to stop it.
Are you really going to send Tom Parker to debtor's prison?
I am fully entitled to call in the loan.
But, Aunt, he has retrenched so much. I would not be surprised to see his children begging bread in the street.
Nonsense. He has just hired Mrs. Hillier to cook. If he can afford a cook, he can afford bread.
Aunt, you know you have enough money to cover the terrace, even if Mr. Parker never repays you.
You are just soft on him because Mr. Sidney is your husband's friend. Tom Parker must learn his lesson. I did not get this wealthy by throwing my money to whatever earth, wind, or fire chooses to take it.
Is money all you ever consider, Aunt?
If this isn't the pot calling the kettle black, you and Miss Clara scratched each other's eyes out to be my sole heir. I do not understand you, Esther. My investments stand to benefit you upon my death. I thought you would like to have enough money to run the estate that you inherit.
And so I would, but not at the expense of seeing a man go to prison as foolish as he is.
Well, we shall see. Let us see how many people Tom Parker can entice to Sanditon this summer. Then we shall see how merciful I shall be.
A few days later, 2 carriages approach Sanditon. In the first carriage is Tom and Mary Parker with their children.
Oh, do you smell it, Mary? I can always smell the ocean before I see it. Whenever I come from London, it's always the same. I realize how much better I feel in Sanditon.
The London air is not very agreeable.
No, indeed. I never feel well in London. But saline air and immersion will be just the thing. My sensations tell me so already.
Charlotte and Georgiana are in the second carriage, along with Aunt Sadie and her son Joshua and baby Lily.
I feel like I've come out of prison. A whole week free from the Gorgon.
What will you do with your liberty?
We must go paddling again.
Oh, yes. Oh, look, and there's the ocean. Do you see it, Joshua?
Georgiana takes Joshua onto her lap to look out of the window, and Joshua smiles. A little later, as the carriage pulls up to Trafalgar House, Mr. Stringer approaches Fred Robinson and a few of his former fellow builders visiting together down the street. He shakes hands with them all good-naturedly.
Mr. Milsham's taking on workers for Colonel Babington's cottage.
Very good. I've got some men looking for work.
The men watch as Charlotte Hayward and company get out of their carriage. Robinson nods towards them.
Looks like Miss Hayward's back.
Yes.
How's her sister doing with taming the dragon at Sanditon House?
I wouldn't know. I haven't been out there in a while.
So, that's how it is.
That's how it is.
I'm sorry, my friend. But I hear it's a large family. There's probably another sister.
They're not for me, Robinson.
That afternoon, Alison comes to see Charlotte and the Parkers at Trafalgar House.
Miss Allison, I can tell the sea breezes have done you good. You are looking very well.
Thank you, Mr. Parker.
I tell you, girls, Sanditon is about to come to life. I can feel it. The town is almost full, and it's only April. Once the beau monde experiences its delights, they will stay the whole summer.
Are they all here for the Prince Regent's picnic?
No doubt, Miss Allison, no doubt. They are either here for the picnic or they are here because they would like to be at the picnic. Either way, they are paying the rent, and with all the upcoming festivities, they will find a reason to stay.
Well, what festivities are you planning?
Well, besides the gypsy picnic, there is the archery competition.
That was Alison's idea, was it not?
I did reacquaint Lady Denham with her love of the sport.
And a good thing you did. The time is ripe for reviving the archery society. And with you as our champion archeress, we shall have some worthy competition to offer.
And then there is a ball, is there not?
Of course. The day after the tournament, we will have the spring ball.
Do you think the Prince Regent will stay for the ball?
I do hope so. Charlotte, what does Lady Susan say of the Prince's plans?
I have not heard from Lady Susan since I first wrote to her. I did hear second-hand that she had gone down to Brighton.
Well, these great ladies have many demands on their time. Are we expecting anyone?
Not that I know of.
How do you do, Morgan? Tom, Mary, good day.
Diana, we did not expect you down so soon. How did you come? With whom?
Will you be staying with us?
Thank you, Mary, but it is quite out of the question, for we all three come. We mean to get lodgings and make some stay.
All three come? What, Arthur and Susanna? I did not think anyone could pry Arthur away from his Venetian windows. And Susanna, too. This is better and better.
So we all actually all come. It was quite unavoidable. There was nothing else to be done, and you shall hear all about it. My dear Mary, send for the children. I long to see them. And dear little Lily, I do dote on her.
How has Susanna borne the journey? And where is Arthur? Why do we not see him here with you?
Susanna has borne it wonderfully. She had not a wink of sleep either the night before we set out or last night at Chichester. This was not so common with her as with me, so I have 1,000 fears for her. But she has kept up so wonderfully. No hysterics of consequence till we came within sight of poor old Sanditon. And the attack was not very violent. It was nearly over by the time we reached a hotel, so that when we got her out of the carriage extremely well with only Mr. Woodcock's assistance. And when I left her, she was directing the disposal of the luggage and helping old Sam uncord the trunks. She desires her best love and 1,000 regrets of being so poor a creature that she could not come with me. And as for poor Arthur, he would not have been unwilling himself, but there is so much wind that I did not think he could safely venture, for I am sure there is an embargo hanging about him. And so I helped him on with his great coat and sent him off for tea, coffee, and sugar. And it is not so very brisk that he could not go out and taste a cheese himself. It will do him good.
The children come in with the nurse and baby Lily. Diana hugs the children and kisses the baby.
Aunt Diana!
Jenny, Alicia, let me look at you. I have missed you these 3 days. Now I brought you some sweets. They're all out on the hall table.
Are they peppermints?
They may be.
The children run out into the entry hall and Diana sits down with the family.
It is providential you came when you did, Diana. We were just discussing the Prince Regent's picnic. Were you successful in finding enough donkeys to seat all the Regent's party?
I have conscripted as many as exist within 15 miles. There was not as many as I had hoped, but we can supplement with ponies and small horses from the farms.
Oh, of course. Good work, my dear.
Charlotte comes over to stand by Alison, who is seated with the baby in a far corner, while Diana and Tom continue to confer on their plans.
Such a sweet little thing. How is Mary?
Much better. And now that they have hired Mrs. Hillier to cook and Georgiana's aunt to help with the children, I expect she'll be back to her old self.
Oh, I'm so glad. She was so weak in January.
And you? Was coming to Lady Denham's the right choice?
Yes, I think so. I know Mary needed me, but I just couldn't breathe in London.
I'm glad to see you looking so well again.
Oh, how is Miss Lamb? It must have been so horrid for her to be stolen away like that.
Yes, it was. If I were her, I would be looking around every corner every second. But now that her aunt is here, she's recovering very well. She's been telling me some fascinating stories about Antigua.
And Mr. Sidney, is the wedding date set?
I've not heard. I expect it will be any time.
Will the Parkers go back to London for it?
They've said nothing to me. I must go home right after the ball. It will be for the best.
Lady Denham has asked me to stay for the summer. What do you think Mamma and Papa will say?
Do you want to stay?
I think I do. Lady Denham has her oddities, but I think she likes me, and she is lonely.
You could always tame the savage beast. I think you should stay for the summer. And perhaps you'll get to dance with Mr. Stringer?
Perhaps. I think he will be here for a while. Mr. Milsham is designing several cottages here.
And how do you know that?
Mr. Stringer told me. He came out to check Robinson's work on the stables.
Oh, did he? Was that all he was checking on?
Yes. What?
No, nothing.
Charlotte, I do need to borrow some money. I feel like a little fool.
My sister, a fool? I doubt it. You're the most level-headed of us all.
Not in money matters, it would seem. I spent all mine when we first got to Sanditon, so I didn't have any when I finally realized my blue boots were never going to fit properly, and I'd given away my other good pair.
I could have bought you another pair in London. Why didn't you tell me you needed boots?
I was making do, as long as I didn't have to go out very much, and you loaned me your pair sometimes. But when I got back to Sanditon, I was in a real pickle.
So what have you worn all these weeks?
I wore out my dancing slippers.
Alison, you little goose, why did you not tell Lady Denham that you needed walking boots?
How could I ask her for boots when she wouldn't even share her candy with me at Christmas? And she knew Mary bought me the blue pair.
I forgot what a miser she was. But what are these boots that you're wearing now? They look new.
A friend bought them for me. He shouldn't have. I want to pay him back.
Him?
All right, Mr. Stringer, if you must know. He happened upon me when I was attempting to make it back from the cliff tops in those horrid blue boots, and my feet couldn't take it any longer.
This is sounding very romantic.
I was so embarrassed. He went out and bought these boots, and when I tried them on, they fit perfectly. I had no choice. I had to wear them. I didn't have anything else. I told him I would pay him back, but he got angry, and he won't speak to me anymore.
Oh, Alison, the scrapes you get into. He probably took offence that you would not accept them as a gift.
How can I accept them as a gift without making him think that I care for him?
Do you care for him?
How can I? Mother won't allow it, and Lady Denham has forbidden it as long as I am with her. I only know that I do not want him to think ill of me.
Mamma may surprise us. She talks of us wanting to marry well, but doesn't every mother? She married Papa even though her father was knighted and Papa had no title or connections. If you must pay him back, here is some money. Will this cover it, do you think?
Yes, surely it would.
Girls, come have some tea and some of Mrs. Hilliard's cake. See if you think it would be a good recipe for the picnic.
Now, Diana, we must make sure that the food is ready for the picnic on the 23rd, and then enough cakes for the archery tournament the next day. And that night, we will celebrate our success at the spring ball. Will it not be glorious, my dears?
Yes, Tom, glorious.
Indeed it will. Perhaps this year has better things in store.
Oh, I do hope so. It must.
Later that day, as Mrs. Parker and Charlotte come out of Trafalgar House, they see Sidney and Susanna coming from the hotel almost to the door.
Susanna, Diana said you'd come. I cannot remember the last time you were here.
It has been a great many years, but when Diana told me of Dr. Fuchsia's famous shower bath, I decided I must see it for myself.
He will be most happy to demonstrate it, I am sure. He has rooms at Prospect House, which is where the invalids stay when they come for sea bathing. Say, Sidney, didn't you once talk of making Parker Downs into a hospital?
Yes, but I was only joking. The girls always had the doctor coming up for some reason or other. He might as well have stayed around the clock.
You exaggerate, brother. He was not there more than 3 or 4 times per week.
Exactly.
I see you smile, Sidney. You think we called for him too much. But he was glad to come. He always said trotting up to Parker Downs gave him much better exercise than a chamber horse.
With the added advantage that you were much more pleasant to look at than a chamber horse.
That is all over now, Sidney.
We are glad to have you back, Susanna. I did not think to see you all so soon. Sidney, how does the investigation progress for Miss Lum?
As well as we could expect. The Bow Street runners are following some leads, but they have nothing substantial to report. Is Tom in the house?
Oh yes, go on in. He will be happy to see you.
Good day to you then, Mary.
Good
Miss
day.
Hayward?
Day.
When Charlotte returns from her errands with Mary, she finds Georgiana crying on her bed over a tear-stained letter.
Georgiana, whatever is the matter?
Otis, he's giving me up.
Oh, Georgiana, what did he say exactly?
He hands Charlotte the letter.
My engagements are now at such a level that I do not see how I could ask any woman to tolerate them, least of all you, who are worthy of so much more than I could ever offer. It is for freedom for all of our brothers and sisters. It is for that alone I press on. Farewell, my fair one, I beg you to forget me, but do not forget our cause. In time you will erase my face from your memory, but do not blind yourself to the struggle of your people. I will always remain your most loving and obedient servant, Otis. Oh, Georgiana.
I thought perhaps I might be able to marry him after all. I truly believe he has given up gambling. And if his innocence is proved by the magistrate, Sidney might relent. I had started to hope again. Charlotte, I do believe I love him very much, in spite of last summer.
And he loves you, I'm sure of it. That is why he is giving you up.
I could travel with him.
You said you hate to travel.
I hate to travel with Mrs. Griffiths. With Otis, it would be different. Maybe I could take a house in London, and he can use it for his headquarters.
Well, in that case, next year, perhaps you could change his mind.
I don't know how I will. Even if he loves me, he will not marry me.
Why? He was more than willing last summer.
The night he found me, I heard him talking to Mr. and Mrs. Thomas. He cannot continue to speak for the sons of Africa if he is living on money from a sugar fortune.
Oh.
So, it is hopeless after all. Can I be any more wretched?
So sorry.
It is rather ironic that both Sidney and Otis have decided against the match on the sole basis of my fortune. I almost wish I did not have this inheritance.
Have you ever thought about how you will invest it once you receive it?
I've never really felt as if it were my money. It's always been at a trust, and Sidney controls my allowance.
Only for one more year.
I always thought my 21st birthday would be my day of freedom. Now I see it as the day when the weight of 100,000 pounds comes crashing down on my shoulders.
Many would envy you.
I know.
Have you ever asked Mr. Sidney for advice? Tom says he has a wide variety of investments, and your father must have taught him a great deal. Maybe he will have some insight.
Ask my guardian for advice. What a novel idea. If I had thought he had any worth giving, I would.
No, it was very good of him to bring your aunt to England.
Yes, it was very unlike him to do that. I do appreciate it, Charlotte. Truly, I do. But I have seen the way the Parkers spend their money. I am not sure that he would be the one to ask for advice.
Well, perhaps not Tom, but it might not hurt to ask Sidney. He might have some good ideas.
I doubt it.
Well, I came upstairs to ask you if you wanted to practice archery with Alison and me at Sanditon House. It would be a pleasant distraction.
Practice will not help me at this point, Charlotte. I've not drawn a bow in years. Thank you, but I am not in the right mood to be trusted with a weapon.
I will see you later then.
Meanwhile, in London, Lady Denham's estranged nephew, Sir Edward, is getting desperate for money. He raises a bottle to his lips, but there's no wine left in it. He tries another, but it's also empty. Dirty dishes are strewn around the table, interspersed with more empty flasks. In disgust, he throws the bottle against the wall with a crash. He finishes addressing an envelope to Miss Clara Brereton at the Swan Inn in Hastings. A loud knock is heard at the door.
Open up, Edward Denham. I know you're in there. Open up. You're 2 weeks late on the rent.
Sir Edward sits quietly, waiting for him to go away.
If we don't have it in 1 week, you will be turned out in the street. 1 week.
After the collection agent is gone, Sir Edward unsteadily gets up, letter in hand, and walks out of the house. A couple of days later, in the seaside town of Hastings, Clara Brereton is tallying up figures in a large accounting book in the empty dining room of the inn. A maid comes in and timidly waits to speak.
Yes.
If you please, Ma'am, the tidying's done, and this came for you in the post.
Very well. You may see if Mrs. Smith needs you in the kitchen.
Yes, ma'am.
The maid hurries away. Clara opens the letter and quickly reads it. It is signed by Sir Edward. She smiles, closes the book, and recalls the maid.
Jemima! Never mind about the kitchen. Go, pack my things, at once.
The next morning at Trafalgar House. Charlotte writes a letter while Georgiana paints a still life of a bowl of fruit. Alicia and Henry are captivated by Georgiana's brushstrokes, while Jenny peers out of the window, watching the carriages go by.
Who's the dark man coming up with Uncle Sidney?
Is it Otis?
Doesn't look like Otis.
I've seen him before. It's Mr. Thomas. He owns the bookstore with Otis.
Why would he come here?
I have no idea.
Good day, Georgiana. Miss Hayward. This is Mr. Thomas.
We have met before. Good day, Mr. Thomas. What news of Otis?
I'm sorry to say he is rather unwell. I try to keep him from working himself to death, but somehow he always finds the needed energy when the time comes for speaking to.
I've asked Mr. Thomas here because he and his wife are involved with the Sons of Africa. I think he may be able to answer some of the questions you asked me the other day, which I was not qualified to answer.
You work for the Sons of Africa, Mr. Thomas? But you are not from Africa.
No, I'm not from Africa, but my wife's family is. Her brother is in Jamaica. He's just managed to purchase his freedom.
What do you do for the Sons of Africa?
I'm the steward of finance. None of us draw salaries. Along with paying for the venues and fares of our speechmakers, we assist the black poor in London.
And what about the black poor in the West Indies? My father freed his slaves several years ago, but they are struggling to survive. Could something be done for them?
So far, we have concentrated our efforts here. But I know that the plight of the freedmen in Western Asia is extremely poor. From what I understand, land in Antigua is very scarce. There's no place other than plantation for anyone to grow their own food.
My aunt was telling me the same thing. The freedmen work for very low wages. Her husband looked all over the island for a job, and now he has disappeared.
I'm afraid that the same thing will happen soon to my brother-in-law. It is not much better in Jamaica, but at least there is a little bit more land.
I am interested.
Sam is interested in... Go ahead, Georgiana.
I was thinking, if I could buy a plantation large enough to employ the freedmen with suitable wages and have it run by black foremen, it would be very helpful. If not in Antigua, perhaps in Jamaica?
I would be happy to look into it for you, Miss Lam. Are you wanting to buy it yourself as an investment or as a charitable work?
If I made a donation to the Sons of Africa for this cause, they could find someone to oversee the project?
I think we would find a way to make it happen. How much of donation were you thinking of?
80,000.
80,000 pounds?
Georgiana, that is most of your inheritance. I cannot advise that.
Thank you for your concern, Mr. Parker, but it is my decision, and I plan to execute it as soon as I reach majority.
It will be out of my hands, then. But I hope you will keep enough to live on.
There's the original 20,000 that my father brought with him to Antigua. That will be sufficient.
Many will thank you for your generosity, Miss Lamb.
It is very generous. Are you absolutely sure about this, Georgiana?
Yes. I did not expect you to give up so much. It would be best to think it over.
I've been thinking it over since Otis rescued me. Mr. Thomas, if a detailed plan on how the money would be utilized could be drawn up, I would like to show it to Mr. Parker. Once it is finalized to our satisfaction, the Sons of Africa can expect the full sum next year.
Perhaps it would be best not to disclose your decision until after your birthday. You may find reason to change your mind before then.
I shall not change my mind, but it may remain confidential if you wish. Only I desire that Mr. Thomas be advised by the other leaders in the society as he draws up the plans.
I agree. That is wise.
Thank you for coming all this way, Mr. Thomas.
Yes, thank you.
Indeed, it was my pleasure. Your generosity will bring relief to great many. I will make the necessary inquiries and report back to you. Let me know if I can be of any further assistance.
Will you please tell Otis that he must take care of himself?
Mrs. Thomas and I tell him that all the time, and to no avail, but perhaps he will listen to you.
Georgiana, I commend you for your generosity. I do not know if I could do as much. But I think you should give more time in thinking this over.
Yes, you have already said so, and I do appreciate your concern. But may I remind you that I am doing nothing more than what you are asking another lady to do.
But that's different. That will keep my brother out of debtor's prison.
And that is admirable. In fact, I will go so far as to say your marrying Eliza Campion is the greatest sacrifice, but I believe mine will have the better returns.
Yours is a charitable donation.
Mrs. Campion's money will relieve one brother from a bondage he could have prevented. Mine will relieve many brothers from a bondage they never deserved.
When did you become so wise?
Oh, I'm not wise. But after being abducted twice, I can see that money has great power to drive people to do evil. I think there's a better use for mine.
Well, I have nothing more to say to you, Georgiana. Do as you wish, and I will assist you however I can to make sure that your inheritance is used to best possible advantage.
Thank you, Sidney. What do you think my father would think of this?
It's hard to say. He turned his slaves free and was already planning to sell the plantation when he sent you away to school. I only know that he was glad to pass the money on to you, for you to use as you wished. For what it's worth, I am proud of you.
Thank you.
Later that day, Georgiana and Charlotte are returning from a walk on the beach when they see a coach pull up. Mrs. Griffiths and the Beaufort girls get out, laughing and chattering. As soon as they see Georgiana, they run up to her.
Oh, so much for peace and quiet.
Georgiana, we missed you.
Oh, Mrs. Griffiths says we might go sea bathing on the first day. Shall you go with us?
Perhaps.
And will you accompany us, Miss Hayward?
Of course.
Papa sent us new sets of watercolor. He sent one for you too, Georgiana. Come and look at them. We're going to paint on the cliff top straight away.
Oh, it's so good to be all together again.
Julia puts her arm through Georgiana's and starts to pull her towards Mrs. Griffith's lodgings. She does not go unwillingly, and with a more than usual tolerant smile on her face, she calls back to Charlotte.
I'll see you later, Charlotte. I'm being abducted again.
Do you need a rescue?
I can manage this time.
A short time later, the Beauforts leave Georgiana at the Trafalgar House doorstep and continue on with their easels. Georgiana joins Charlotte in an upstairs bedroom.
I see that you've freed yourself from the Lilliputians.
Yes, it's my last evening of peace and quiet for a while.
I could ask Mary if you might stay here until I go home next week. Would you like that?
Oh, yes, please do. I can love the Beauforts much better when they are way down the street.
I shall ask her right now.
Alone, Georgiana lays down on the bed for a few moments, thinking. Then she goes back to the desk, takes out some writing paper, and starts a letter.
My darling Otis, do not say I must forget you. How could I ever erase your face from my memory? Can the sun be erased from the heavens? You have risen for such a time as this, my darling. I only ask that you do not banish me from your light. Come to Sanditon. Let us discuss what may be done. Sidney will understand. Your most affectionate and loving, Georgiana.
Meanwhile in London, Clara Brereton knocks on Sir Edward's door. He opens it with his shirt tail hanging out and a glass of brandy in his hand.
Well, well, well. I wondered how long it would take. I'd say you caught the earliest coach after receiving my letter. You were glad to get my letter then?
Of course. Are you not glad to see me?
Sir Edward just smiles, takes a drink and sits down, leaning back on his chair, leaving her in the doorway. After waiting a moment and still not being invited in, she steps inside, all business. She takes in the mess and immediately grasps the truth of his situation.
This is a long way down from your former way of living.
It's rather hard to get good help around here.
Then let me propose a remedy. The fact is, Sir Edward, you need me. You have a title, but no money. I have the ingenuity required to take something as worthless as Denham Place and turn it into a living. So here is what we will do. You will give over full management of the estate, including the great house and the cottage ornée, to me. I, in turn, will allow you to live with me as my husband in my cousin's inn, until such a time as we have the expenses to repair the roof at Denham Place. Then we will rent it out and find permanent accommodations.
Why, Miss Brereton, this is so sudden. To what do I owe the honor of your proposal?
Well, you owe it to your heir, if nothing else.
What heir? I have no heir.
That is not to say that you never will. Do you want to leave him something of value? Would you like to continue the honor of the Denham family by making your estate into something that you can take pride? Or will you let it go to ruin?
Sir Edward just smirks and takes another drink. When he has no further answer, Clara gets irate.
Very well. Go to the devil if you wish, or you may live a respectable life with an intelligent and beautiful wife.
Wait. The intelligent, beautiful wife. To whom are you referring?
I thought that you had come to your senses when you wrote. Apparently, you are still entertaining the idea of a poorhouse as a viable option. What a pity. We could have been quite good together.
With that, she turns on her heel and leaves. Sir Edward's smile quickly fades. He considers a moment, then goes to the window to watch Clara walk down the street and enter her house on the opposite side a few doors down. The afternoon light fades into evening. At sundown, he knocks at the Brereton door and is admitted. It is a fair day, and Alison is walking alone to the Hollis Falls. From Sanditon House, she takes a little used path running alongside the massive stables where the livestock are kept when not in pasture. The new renovation is still in process, but the front of the building is done and some animals have been returned to their pens and stalls. Alison turns up her nose at the smell of manure and hears a wheelbarrow being emptied nearby, but her view is blocked by the boxwood hedges that edge the path on either side. Finding an opening in the hedge that is between her and the stables, she peers through to the other side. A stable boy is dumping animal droppings into a pile between the hedge and the stable wall. The stench is overpowering. Alison retraces her steps and enters the stables to find Ridley, Lady Denham's livestock man.
Good morning, Mr. Ridley.
Morning, miss. What may I do for you?
I was wondering if you were aware that Lady Denham prefers the path along the stables to walk to the falls.
Beg pardon, miss, but that's a long way. She's always taken the shorter path from the front.
But the steepness of the short way bothers her now. So she does not use it anymore. And the smell bothers her when she uses the path by the stables. So she has stopped walking to the falls altogether.
I know all about her complaints about the pigs. She already has me washing them every day. I don't know what else I can do.
Perhaps if you simply took the droppings to the other side of the barn, instead of dumping them here behind the boxwood hedge, the problem of the odor would be solved.
I see your point, miss. I had no idea Lady Denham was using that path again. I've not seen her on it for these 10 years, at least. No wonder she was complaining about the smell. I'll see to it that the pile is removed right away. And I'll plant it up with something that smells nice.
Might I suggest lavender?
Aye, miss. We'll put it in lavender.
And there will be no more need for lavender water baths.
Thank heavens. And thank you, miss.
Later that day, Alison stops in to see Mrs. Whitby's library, where books are not only circulated but are sold, along with a variety of trinkets and accessories. Miss Whitby stands behind the counter, fidgeting with her bracelets.
Good day, Miss Haywood.
I would like to buy a volume of Shakespeare. Do you have any?
To be sure, miss. We have tragedies and comedies in 2 volumes. Would you like both of them?
Just the comedies, I think.
We just got another novel of Miss Radcliffe's. It's so very horrid.
Indeed. Oh, you have Christiana.
That's the one young Stringer's always looking at when he comes in. I hope he buys it one of these days. He's dog-earing it something fierce.
You don't say.
I really think you'd like the Italian better, miss. And we have Pamela and Evelina. They're very romantic.
Oh, thank you. Christiana is a very different sort of book.
I'll say. I don't see what Mr. Stringer sees in it.
It's the second volume to one of the greatest allegories ever written.
Oh, fancy that. I had no idea.
I think I will take this one as well.
To each his own, I suppose. But what will Mr. Stringer read if you buy his favorite book?
I cannot tell you.
Do you think him handsome?
Yes, very handsome.
Kitty Robinson set her cap for him, but he don't seem to pay her any mind. I think he likes fair-haired girls better. His mother was very fair. Mama tells me I look something like her.
Well, thank you very much, Mrs. Whitby.
Good day, miss.
That night, James Stringer comes to his aunt's house after a day of work. She greets him with an unexpected piece of news.
Oh, Lady Denham's little girl was here again today. She brought a package from town that she said you had been waiting for.
Oh, she did she?
It's over there on the table. It's heavy.
Stringer crosses the room to the table, where a paper-wrapped parcel wrapped lays. He opens it to find a beautifully bound volume of Shakespeare's comedies and John Bunyan's novel Christiana. In the novel, a scripture reference is written on the inside cover. Mr. Stringer shakes his head and smiles. He then opens the cover of the Shakespeare to read the inscription there.
If not with shillings, then with Shakespeare. From a friend.
Oh, you ordered books?
No. They're a present from a friend.
Some very pretty books. Must be a friend with a little bit of money to spare. Before long, you'll be living so high you won't want to stay with me anymore.
No, Aunt. But someday we're going to live in a better house than this.
Well, I know you will, Jimmy. But I don't think I can leave the house. It's where Billy were born and raised. Did your friend write you a message in the other book?
Romans 13, verse 8.
Oh, it's been a while since I was in Sunday school.
Do you remember the vicar's text that got under Tom Parker's skin last November? Best sermon I ever heard. Let no debt remain outstanding.
Aye, except the continuing debt of loving one another. I think this must be a very good friend.
I think perhaps you're right.
Thank you for joining us for episode 8 of Parker Brothers Build the Boardwalk. Next week, we'll invite you to come with us to the Prince Regent's picnic and the spring ball. From all of us at DIY Austen Drama, we bid you a pleasant week.